Sarah Martinez adjusted her uniform one final time before stepping out of the transport vehicle. The crisp morning air of the naval base carried the familiar sense of salt water and diesel fuel, but everything else about this place felt foreign. After 8 years of service in various locations, she thought she had seen it all, but Naval Base Coronado was different. This was where legends were made, where the most elite warriors in the world called home. At 26, Sarah had worked her way up to senior petty officer through dedication and an unwavering attention to detail. Her specialty in logistics and base operations had taken her from small outposts to major installations, but never anywhere quite like this. The reputation of SEAL team operations preceded every assignment here, and she could feel the weight of that legacy in the very air she breathed. The base stretched out before her like a small city, with buildings arranged in precise military order. Palm trees swayed gently in the California breeze, creating an almost surreal contrast to the serious business conducted within these gates. She had been briefed that her primary assignment would be gate duty and visitor processing, a role that might seem mundane to outsiders but was absolutely critical to base security. Her supervisor, Chief Petty Officer Williams, met her at the main administrative building. He was a weathered man in his 40s with kind eyes that had clearly seen their share of both triumph and tragedy. "Martinez, welcome to Coronado," he said, extending a firm handshake. "I trust your transition from Norfolk went smoothly?" "Yes, Chief." "Thank you for asking," Sarah replied, maintaining proper military bearing while taking in her surroundings. The base buzzed with activity even in the early morning hours. Personnel moved with purpose as vehicles came and went with clockwork precision, and there was an underlying current of readiness that she had rarely experienced elsewhere. "Good. Let me walk you through your primary responsibilities," Williams continued as they began moving toward the main gate complex. "Gate duty here isn't like other installations. We process everything from routine personnel to high-level officials, foreign dignitaries, and family members of our operators. Every person who comes through these gates is someone's priority, and we treat them accordingly." As they walked, Sarah noticed the meticulous attention to detail in everything around her. The landscaping was perfectly maintained, the buildings showed no signs of neglect, and every piece of equipment appeared to be in pristine condition. This was clearly an installation where excellence was not just expected but demanded. "The gate you'll be primarily assigned to handles most of our official traffic," Williams explained as they approached a substantial checkpoint facility. "You'll be working with a team of 4 others, rotating shifts to ensure 24-hour coverage. The work can be routine, but it can also be intense when we have major operations or high-profile visits." The gate complex itself was impressive. Multiple lanes allowed for efficient traffic flow, while sophisticated security equipment ensured that every vehicle and person was properly screened. Guard stations were positioned strategically to provide both protection and clear lines of sight. Everything about the setup spoke to the serious nature of the work conducted beyond these barriers. Sarah met her new teammates throughout the morning. There was Petty Officer First Class Johnson, a 12-year veteran who knew every regulation by heart and could spot a forged document from across the room. Petty Officer Second Class Chen brought a technical expertise that kept all their electronic systems running smoothly. Petty Officer Third Class Rodriguez had an easy manner with visitors that helped defuse tense situations before they could escalate. "The key to success here," Johnson explained as they reviewed standard operating procedures, "is understanding that everyone who comes through that gate has a story. Some are routine, some are urgent, and some are life-changing. Our job is to facilitate the important work that happens on this base while maintaining absolute security." Sarah found herself impressed by the professionalism of her new colleagues. They took their responsibilities seriously but maintained the kind of camaraderie that made difficult work bearable. She could already see that this assignment would challenge her in ways she had not anticipated. The first few days passed in a blur of orientation sessions, security briefings, and hands-on training. Sarah learned the intricate protocols for processing different types of visitors, from contractors and civilian employees to military personnel from other branches and international partners. Each category had specific requirements, and attention to detail was paramount. She also began to understand the unique rhythm of the base. Early mornings often brought family members saying goodbye to operators heading out on deployments. Afternoons might see the arrival of officials for briefings or planning sessions. Evenings sometimes brought the return of teams from training exercises, their faces showing the exhaustion and satisfaction of hard work completed. One particular morning, Sarah was reviewing the day's expected arrivals when Chief Williams approached her station. "Martinez, I want you to take point on a special arrival this morning," he said, his expression more serious than usual. "We have a family member coming in who has been through a particularly difficult time. I want our best people handling this one." Sarah straightened, recognizing the trust being placed in her. "Of course, Chief. What can you tell me about the situation?" "Not much I can share specifically, but this person has earned our highest level of respect and courtesy. They've sacrificed more than most people can imagine, and they deserve to be treated accordingly." Williams paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Sometimes the families of our operators carry burdens that the rest of us can't fully understand. Today is one of those times." The weight of responsibility settled on Sarah's shoulders as she prepared for the arrival. She checked and double-checked all procedures, ensured that her station was properly organized, and reviewed the appropriate protocols for handling sensitive situations. Whatever this person had been through, she was determined to make their experience as smooth and respectful as possible. As the morning progressed, routine traffic moved through the gate with typical efficiency. Sarah processed contractor badges, verified delivery schedules, and handled the dozen small tasks that kept operations running smoothly. But, in the back of her mind, she remained focused on the special arrival Chief Williams had mentioned. Around mid-morning, she noticed increased activity at the command post. Several senior personnel were moving with the kind of purposeful urgency that indicated something significant was happening. Phone calls were made, additional security measures were quietly implemented, and there was a subtle but unmistakable shift in the atmosphere around the gate complex. "Heads up," Johnson said quietly as he passed her station. "I think your special arrival might be coming in soon. I've never seen the chief this focused on gate protocol." Sarah nodded, her pulse quickening slightly. She had handled VIPs before, but something about this situation felt different. The level of attention from senior personnel suggested that this was not just another routine visit, but rather something that held special significance for the entire command. She took a deep breath and focused on her training. Whatever was about to happen, she was prepared to handle it with the professionalism and respect that both her position and this base demanded. The morning sun climbed higher over Coronado, and Sarah Martinez stood ready to face whatever challenge was approaching her gate. The radio crackled with quiet communications between security posts, and she could see vehicles beginning to position themselves along the approach road. Whatever was coming, it was clear that every person on duty understood the importance of getting this right. Sarah checked her appearance one final time, straightened her shoulders, and prepared to meet whatever test this day would bring. In the distance, she could see a single vehicle approaching the gate, moving at a measured pace that suggested the occupant was both familiar with and respectful of military protocol. As it drew closer, Sarah felt the weight of expectation settling around her like a mantle. This was her moment to prove that Chief Williams' confidence in her abilities was well placed. The vehicle slowed as it approached her station, and Sarah stepped forward with the bearing and professionalism that had earned her this assignment. She was ready to serve, ready to honor whatever sacrifice had brought this person to her gate, and ready to uphold the standards of excellence that define Naval Base Coronado. Little did she know that the next few minutes would change not only her understanding of service and sacrifice, but her entire perspective on what it meant to be part of something larger than herself. The vehicle came to a stop, and Sarah Martinez stepped forward to begin what would become one of the most significant encounters of her military career. The sedan that pulled up to Sarah's gate was unremarkable in every way except for the small gold star decal visible in the rear window. As the vehicle came to a complete stop, Sarah approached with her standard greeting ready, clipboard in hand, prepared to process what she assumed would be another routine visitor. The morning sun cast long shadows across the checkpoint, and the familiar sounds of base operations provided a steady background rhythm. The driver's side window lowered to reveal a woman who appeared to be in her early 50s, with graying brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and wearing civilian clothes that spoke of practical comfort rather than fashion. Her face showed the kind of weathered strength that comes from enduring life's hardest lessons, but her eyes held a depth that suggested those lessons had been particularly costly. "Good morning, ma'am," Sarah began, maintaining her professional demeanor while noting the gold star decal with growing understanding. "I'll need to see your identification and the purpose of your visit today." The woman reached into her purse with movements that seemed both careful and tired. "I'm here to visit my son's memorial stone in the garden," she said quietly, her voice carrying a weight that made Sarah's chest tighten. "My name is Patricia Donovan. I believe I'm on the approved visitor list." Sarah's fingers moved automatically to her computer terminal, but her mind was racing. Patricia Donovan. The name was familiar from briefings about families who had made the ultimate sacrifice. As she pulled up the visitor database, the full picture began to emerge. Patricia's son, Lieutenant Commander Michael Donovan, had been killed in action 18 months earlier during a classified operation. The gold star in her window marked her as a Gold Star Mother, a designation that carried profound meaning within the military community. "Yes, ma'am, I have you right here," Sarah said, her voice softening with respect. "Mrs. Donovan, thank you for your family's service and sacrifice." The words felt inadequate, but they were all she had to offer in the face of such profound loss. Patricia nodded with a sad smile that suggested she had heard these words many times before. "Thank you, dear." Michael always spoke highly of the people who served alongside him. He would have appreciated knowing that people like you continue to serve with such dedication. As Sarah processed the necessary paperwork, she became aware of movement behind her. Chief Williams had appeared at the guard station, along with several other senior personnel who had positioned themselves at respectful distances around the gate area. The level of attention being paid to this visit was beginning to make sense, but Sarah sensed that there was more to the story than she yet understood. "Mrs. Donovan," Sarah said as she completed the entry procedures, "someone will escort you to the memorial garden whenever you're ready. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "Actually," Patricia replied, "I was hoping to speak with Commander Harrison if he's available. Michael served under his command, and I have something I'd like to share with him." The mention of Commander Harrison sent a subtle ripple through the personnel within earshot. Sarah had heard the name in briefings but had never met the man himself. Commander James Harrison was something of a legend on the base, a SEAL officer with over 20 years of service and multiple combat deployments. He was known for his tactical brilliance, his unwavering dedication to his men, and his ability to bring teams home safely from the most dangerous missions imaginable. "Let me check on the commander's availability," Sarah said, reaching for her radio. Before she could make the call, however, Chief Williams stepped forward with an expression that suggested significant developments were unfolding. "Mrs. Donovan," Chief Williams said with deep respect, "Commander Harrison is actually expecting you. He asked to be notified immediately upon your arrival. He's on his way to the gate now." Sarah felt her curiosity intensifying. The level of coordination surrounding this visit suggested something far more significant than a routine memorial visit. She continued to process routine traffic at the gate, but her attention remained focused on the developing situation with Mrs. Donovan. Within minutes, a small convoy of vehicles approached the gate from the base interior. The lead vehicle bore the flags and markings that indicated a senior officer was aboard, and Sarah could see additional personnel in the following vehicles. As the convoy came to a stop, she watched with growing amazement as not just one, but several high-ranking officers emerged from the vehicles. Commander Harrison was immediately recognizable from his bearing alone. He was a man in his early 40s with the kind of physical presence that suggested years of intense training and dangerous operations. His uniform was immaculate, his medal spoke of extraordinary service, and his expression showed the kind of focused intensity that marked true leaders. But, as he approached Mrs. Donovan's vehicle, Sarah noticed something unexpected in his demeanor. The confident commander was showing signs of nervousness. "Patricia," Commander Harrison said as Mrs. Donovan stepped out of her car, "thank you for coming today. I know this wasn't an easy trip for you." "James," she replied, and Sarah could hear the warmth in her voice despite the underlying sadness. "You know I wouldn't miss this opportunity. Michael always said that you were like a father to your men, and I wanted to thank you properly for everything you did for him." Sarah found herself witnessing something she had never seen before. Commander Harrison, a man who had led men into the most dangerous situations imaginable, seemed genuinely emotional as he spoke with Mrs. Donovan. Other senior officers had gathered at respectful distances, creating a circle of honor around the conversation. "Patricia, there's something I need to tell you," Commander Harrison said, his voice carrying a weight that made everyone present focus their complete attention. "Something about Michael's final mission that you deserve to know." Mrs. Donovan's expression grew serious as she prepared to hear whatever the commander felt compelled to share. Sarah realized that she was witnessing something extraordinary, a moment when the official records and classified briefings gave way to human truth and genuine connection. "The mission where we lost Michael was successful because of his actions," Commander Harrison continued. "But what you might not know is that his decisions during that operation saved the lives of 12 other operators, including mine. The intelligence we gathered prevented what could have been a catastrophic terrorist attack on American soil." Mrs. Donovan's eyes filled with tears, but she maintained her composure with the strength that had carried her through the darkest period of her life. "I knew my son died serving something larger than himself," she said quietly. "But thank you for telling me the details. It helps to know that his sacrifice had such meaning." Commander Harrison nodded, then seemed to steel himself for whatever he planned to say next. "Patricia, there's something else. Something I've wanted to do for 18 months but needed proper authorization to complete." He turned slightly and gestured to one of the other officers, who stepped forward carrying what appeared to be an official document case. Sarah watched with growing amazement as the scene continued to unfold before her gate station. "Michael's actions during that final mission have been reviewed by the highest levels of command," Commander Harrison explained. "His tactical decisions, his leadership under fire, and his ultimate sacrifice have been recognized with our nation's second highest decoration for valor." The officer with the document case opened it to reveal a medal that gleamed in the morning sunlight. Sarah recognized it immediately from her training as the Navy Cross, and decoration awarded only for extraordinary heroism in combat situations. "This medal was approved 6 months ago," Commander Harrison continued, "but I wanted to present it to you personally, here on the base where Michael trained and served with such distinction." Mrs. Donovan's composure finally broke as tears streamed down her face. But these were not tears of pure grief, they were tears that mixed sorrow with pride, loss with honor, and personal pain with national recognition. Sarah found herself deeply moved by the scene playing out before her. What happened next, however, would remain etched in her memory forever. As Commander Harrison prepared to present the Navy Cross to Mrs. Donovan, he did something that sent shockwaves through every person present. He rendered a slow, deliberate salute to the Gold Star mother standing before him. It was not the crisp, formal salute of military protocol, but rather a deeply personal gesture of respect from a warrior to the mother of a fallen hero. But the truly stunning moment came when Mrs. Donovan, without hesitation and with movements that spoke of deep familiarity with military tradition, returned the salute with perfect form. Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat as she realized what she was witnessing. This was not just a Gold Star mother receiving recognition for her son's sacrifice. This was a moment of profound mutual respect between people who understood the true cost of service to country. As the salute concluded, Commander Harrison spoke words that would echo in Sarah's mind for years to come. "Patricia, your son's sacrifice will never be forgotten, and your strength as his mother continues to inspire everyone who serves under this flag." The formal presentation of the Navy Cross proceeded with all the dignity and solemnity that such moments demand, but Sarah found herself focusing on the human elements of the scene. The way other officers maintained respectful distances while ensuring that this moment was protected and honored. The careful attention to every detail that demonstrated how seriously the command took their responsibility to Gold Star families. The genuine emotion on faces that were typically schooled to show only professional composure. As the ceremony concluded and Mrs. Donovan prepared to continue to the memorial garden, Sarah realized that she had just witnessed something that would fundamentally change her understanding of military service. This was not just about following orders or completing missions, it was about being part of a brotherhood and sisterhood that extended beyond active duty to include the families who shared in the sacrifice. The vehicles began to depart, taking Mrs. Donovan and her escort toward the memorial garden where she would have private time to honor her son's memory. Commander Harrison, however, made an unexpected stop at Sarah's Gate station before departing with his convoy. Commander Harrison approached Sarah's Gate station with the measured stride of someone accustomed to command, but his expression held something she hadn't expected to see. In the aftermath of the ceremony with Mrs. Donovan, the legendary SEAL officer appeared almost vulnerable, as though the emotional weight of honoring a fallen operator had stripped away some of the protective armor that senior military leaders typically wore. "Petty Officer Martinez," he said, reading her name tag with the careful attention to detail that marked exceptional leaders. "I noticed you handled that situation with exceptional professionalism and sensitivity. Chief Williams speaks very highly of your work here." Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she realized she was receiving personal recognition from one of the most respected officers on the base. "Thank you, sir. Mrs. Donovan deserves nothing less than our absolute best." "She does indeed," Commander Harrison agreed, his voice carrying depths of meaning that Sarah was only beginning to understand. "Would you join me for a brief walk? There are some things about today's ceremony that I think you should understand, given your role here at the gate." The request was unexpected, but Sarah quickly secured her station with Petty Officer Johnson and fell into step beside the commander as they walked along the perimeter road. The base stretched out around them, with its carefully maintained buildings and precisely organized operations, but Sarah found herself seeing everything through new eyes after witnessing the ceremony. "Petty Officer Martinez," Commander Harrison began, "how long have you been in the Navy?" 8 years, sir. This is my first assignment at a SEAL installation." "And what brought you to military service?" The question seemed simple, but Sarah sensed that the commander was building towards something more significant. "My father served in the Army, sir. He always taught me that serving something larger than yourself was one of the highest callings a person could have." Commander Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "Wise man. Did he see combat?" "Yes, sir. 2 tours in Afghanistan." He never talked much about the details, but he always emphasized that the real heroes were the ones who didn't come home. They walked in silence for several moments before Commander Harrison spoke again. "Michael Donovan was 28 years old when we lost him. He had been married for 3 years and was planning to start a family when he returned from that deployment. He was one of the finest operators I've ever had the privilege to command." Sarah listened intently as the commander continued, understanding that she was being entrusted with information that went far beyond her normal security clearance. "What you witnessed today was 18 months in the making," he explained. "The Navy cross-approval process is extensive under normal circumstances, but Michael's case required even more careful review because the mission details remain classified. Getting authorization to share even the basic facts with his mother required intervention from the highest levels of command." "Sir, may I ask why you're sharing this with me?" Commander Harrison stopped walking and turned to face her directly. "Because you're going to encounter more situations like this, and I want you to understand what you're really seeing when families like Mrs. Donovan come through your gate." He gestured toward the memorial garden, where they could see Mrs. Donovan standing before a stone marker among dozens of others. Every name on every stone in that garden represents not just a fallen warrior, but a family whose world was forever changed. Mothers, fathers, spouses, children, they all carry scars that most people can't see or understand. Sarah followed his gaze, noting how Mrs. Donovan stood with perfect military bearing despite the obvious emotional weight of her visit. "She served too, didn't she?" 22 years in the Navy, Commander Harrison confirmed. "She retired as a senior chief petty officer just 5 years before Michael was killed. She understands military protocol because she lived it for more than 2 decades. That's why her return salute was so perfect." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. Mrs. Donovan wasn't just a Gold Star mother, she was a veteran who had given decades of her own life to military service, only to lose her son to the same calling that had defined her career. Patricia Donovan served in logistics and supply operations, the commander continued. She deployed to support operations in the Middle East, the Pacific, and Africa. She earned her rank through the same dedication and professionalism that you're showing in your current assignment. They resumed walking, and Sarah found herself processing this new information with a growing sense of awe and responsibility. "Sir, how do you handle situations like this? How do you find the right words when there are no words adequate for such loss?" "You don't find the right words," Commander Harrison replied honestly. "You find the right actions. You ensure that every detail is perfect, that every gesture shows the respect that sacrifice deserves, and that families like the Donovans know their loved one's service will never be forgotten." As they walked, the commander began sharing more details about the base's relationship with Gold Star families. Sarah learned that Naval Base Coronado maintained an active program to honor fallen operators and support their families. Regular ceremonies, memorial events, and family support services were all part of a comprehensive effort to ensure that sacrifice was remembered and honored. "The salute I rendered to Mrs. Donovan wasn't just personal respect," Commander Harrison explained. "It was recognition of her own service, acknowledgement of her sacrifice as a mother, and a promise that her son's legacy will continue to inspire future generations of warriors." And she returned the salute because she understands what it means. She knows that in that moment, we weren't just military personnel following protocol, we were members of a family honoring one of our own. They reached a bench overlooking the training facilities where Sarah could see SEAL candidates engaged in their grueling preparation. Young men pushed their bodies and minds to the absolute limits, knowing that their future teammates' lives would depend on their readiness and capability. "Every man you see down there is training not just for his own survival, but for the survival of his teammates," Commander Harrison observed. Michael Donovan went through that same training, stood on those same fields, and made the same commitment to never leave a brother behind. Sarah watched the training with new understanding, seeing beyond the physical challenges to the deeper purpose that drove these warriors. "Sir, what can I do to better serve families like Mrs. Donovan when they come through my gate?" "Continue doing exactly what you did today," he replied. "Treat every person with dignity and respect, but understand that some carry burdens that require extra sensitivity. Learn to recognize the signs, gold star decals, certain license plates, the way someone carries themselves when they're dealing with profound loss." The commander reached into his uniform pocket and retrieved a small card. "This is my direct contact information. If you ever encounter a situation at the gate where a family member needs immediate assistance or support, don't hesitate to contact me personally. Day or night." Sarah accepted the card with hands that trembled slightly, understanding the trust being placed in her. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Commander Harrison said with confidence. "Chief Williams chose you for gate duty because he recognized something in your character that makes you suitable for these responsibilities." Today proved him right. As they began walking back toward the gate complex, Sarah found herself reflecting on how much her understanding of her role had changed in just a few hours. What she had initially seen as a straightforward security assignment now revealed itself as something much more significant, a position that placed her at the intersection of military operations and human sacrifice. "Sir, may I ask about the other families? Are there others like Mrs. Donovan who visit regularly?" "More than you might expect," he replied. "Some come monthly, others annually on significant dates. Some visit alone, others bring children or grandchildren to share stories about fathers or uncles they may barely remember. Each visit is important, and each family deserves our absolute best." They could see Mrs. Donovan walking slowly back toward the gate area, her visit to the memorial garden complete. Her bearing remained strong, but Sarah could now recognize the subtle signs of someone carrying profound emotional weight. "One more thing, Petty Officer Martinez," Commander Harrison said as they neared the gate. "What you witnessed today is classified at the level of family knowledge. The details about Michael's mission, the circumstances of his medal, and the personal information about his family are not for general discussion." "Understood completely, sir." "Good. But I also want you to understand that being trusted with this knowledge makes you part of something larger. You're now one of the guardians of that family's dignity and their loved one's legacy." As Mrs. Donovan approached the gate to depart, Sarah took her position with renewed understanding of her responsibilities. She processed the departure paperwork with the same attention to detail she had shown during the arrival, but now every action carried deeper meaning. "Thank you for your service today, Mrs. Donovan," Sarah said as she completed the necessary procedures. "Please know that your son's sacrifice continues to inspire all of us who serve." Patricia Donovan smiled with genuine warmth, recognizing something in Sarah's demeanor that hadn't been there during their initial interaction. "Thank you, dear. People like you are the reason families like mine continue to believe in the mission our loved ones died serving." As the sedan departed through the gate, Sarah realized that her entire perspective on military service had fundamentally shifted. She was no longer just a petty officer processing routine traffic. She was a guardian of sacred trust, a keeper of memories, and a bridge between the operational military and the families who shared in its sacrifices. Commander Harrison observed her reflection with approval. "You're beginning to understand what Chief Williams saw in you," he said. "This base doesn't just need people who can follow procedures, it needs people who can honor the deeper meaning behind those procedures." The rest of the day passed with routine traffic and standard operations, but Sarah found herself approaching each interaction with enhanced awareness and sensitivity. Every person who passed through her gate carried their own story, their own connection to the broader mission of national defense, and their own deserving of respect and professional service. As her shift ended and she prepared to hand duties over to the evening team, Sarah reflected on how a single morning had transformed her understanding of her role, her service, and her place within the larger military family. 6 months had passed since that transformative morning when Sarah first witnessed Commander Harrison's salute to Patricia Donovan, and the lessons learned during that encounter had fundamentally reshaped her approach to military service. What began as routine gate duty had evolved into something far more meaningful, a calling that connected her daily work to the deeper purposes that drove military service. Sarah's reputation on the base had grown considerably during those months. Word spread quickly in military circles when someone demonstrated exceptional dedication and sensitivity, and her handling of family visits and special situations had earned recognition from multiple levels of command. She had processed dozens of similar visits, each one teaching her something new about sacrifice, resilience, and the bonds that held military families together. The morning started like any other, with Sarah reviewing the day's expected arrivals and coordinating with her gate team on special procedures. The California sun was already warming the checkpoint area, and the familiar rhythm of base operations provided a comforting background to her preparations. But there was something different in the air today, a sense of anticipation that suggested significant events were approaching. Chief Williams approached her station with an expression that had become familiar over the past months, the look he wore when important visitors were expected and he needed his most trusted people in key positions. "Martinez, I have another special situation for you today," he said, consulting his clipboard with the careful attention that marked all his briefings. "We're expecting a group of family members for a commemoration ceremony. Some of them are first-time visitors to the base, and they're going to need our most sensitive handling." Sarah straightened with the automatic response that had become second nature. "Of course, Chief. What can you tell me about the situation?" "It's the 5-year anniversary of Operation Neptune's resolve," Williams explained, using a code name that Sarah recognized from classified briefings. "We lost 4 operators during that mission, and their families are gathering here for a memorial service and dedication ceremony." The weight of the assignment settled on Sarah's shoulders as she absorbed the information. Operation Neptune's resolve had been one of the most significant SEAL operations in recent years, a complex mission that had disrupted major terrorist networks but at tremendous cost. The 4 men killed during that operation had become legends within the SEAL community, and their sacrifice was remembered as emblematic of the courage and dedication that define Special Operations Forces. "The families haven't all been together since the funeral services 5 years ago," Chief Williams continued. "Some of the children were very young then, and this will be their first real opportunity to understand their fathers' legacies. Commander Harrison specifically requested that you handle their arrival and initial processing." Sarah felt a familiar surge of responsibility mixed with honor. Over the months since her first encounter with Mrs. Donovan, Commander Harrison had continued to entrust her with increasingly significant family-related duties. She had become known throughout the base as someone who could handle sensitive situations with the perfect combination of military professionalism and human compassion. "I'll ensure everything is perfect, Chief," she promised, already mentally reviewing the protocols for group arrivals and memorial events. I know you will, Williams replied. But, there's one more thing you should know. Mrs. Donovan will be attending today's ceremony as an honored guest. The 4 operators who died in Neptune's Resolve all served under her son Michael's command during previous deployments. This ceremony is as much about honoring continuing bonds between military families as it is about remembering specific losses. The news brought back vivid memories of that morning 6 months earlier when Sarah had first witnessed the profound connection between Commander Harrison and Patricia Donovan. Since then, she had learned much more about the intricate networks of relationships that connected military families across generations and units. Mrs. Donovan had become something of an unofficial representative for Gold Star families throughout the Navy, using her own experience with loss to help others navigate their journeys of grief and healing. As the morning progressed, Sarah made final preparations for the arriving families. She coordinated with base security to ensure smooth traffic flow, verified that escort vehicles were positioned properly, and reviewed the specific needs that had been communicated in advance. Some families would need assistance with young children, others had elderly grandparents making the difficult journey, and all deserved the highest level of care and attention. The first vehicle arrived precisely at the scheduled time, carrying the widow and 3 children of Chief Petty Officer David Chen, one of the operators killed during Operation Neptune's Resolve. Sarah had studied the family profiles in advance and knew that Mrs. Chen was a nurse who had moved across the country after her husband's death to be closer to her extended family. The children, now aged 8, 10, and 12, had been too young to fully understand their loss 5 years earlier. "Good morning, Mrs. Chen," Sarah said as she approached the vehicle with her standard professional bearings softened by genuine warmth. "Welcome to Naval Base Coronado. We're honored to have you and your children here today." Mrs. Chen emerged from the driver's seat with the composed strength that Sarah had learned to recognize in military spouses. She was a petite woman in her early 30s whose eyes showed both determination and lingering sadness. "Thank you," she replied. "The children have been looking forward to this trip for weeks. They have so many questions about their father's service." As Sarah processed the family's entry paperwork, she noticed the children watching everything with intense curiosity. The eldest, a boy who bore a striking resemblance to the photos of his father that Sarah had seen in briefing materials, seemed particularly focused on the military protocols being followed around their arrival. "Is this where Daddy worked?" asked the youngest, a girl with pigtails who couldn't quite see over the car's window frame. "This is where Daddy trained to become the best warrior he could be," Mrs. Chen explained with a gentle smile. "And where he learned to work with the teammates who became like brothers to him." Sarah completed the processing quickly and efficiently, ensuring that the family felt welcomed while maintaining the security protocols that protected everyone on the base. As their escort arrived to guide them to the ceremony location, she reflected on how natural these interactions had become for her over the past months. The second family brought different challenges and different emotions. Master Chief Petty Officer James Rodriguez had left behind a wife, 2 teenage daughters, and parents who were now in their 70s. The family dynamics were more complex, with multiple generations processing grief differently and teenage daughters who were old enough to fully understand what their father's sacrifice meant for their futures. Sarah noted immediately that Mrs. Rodriguez carried herself with the bearing of someone who had served in the military herself. Her movements were precise, her awareness of her surroundings was keen, and her interaction with her daughters showed the kind of leadership skills that came from military training. "Mrs. Rodriguez, welcome," Sarah said as she approached the family. "I understand you'll be participating in today's ceremony as both a family member and a representative of the Navy Wives Association." "That's correct," Mrs. Rodriguez replied, her voice carrying both strength and emotion. "James always believed that taking care of military families was as important as any mission, and I've tried to continue that work in his memory." The processing went smoothly, but Sarah noticed that the elderly parents seemed overwhelmed by the formal military environment. She made a mental note to ensure they received extra attention and support throughout the day's events. The third and fourth families arrived within minutes of each other, creating a brief period of coordinated activity as Sarah and her team processed multiple vehicles simultaneously. These were the families of Petty Officer First Class Michael Thompson and Petty Officer Second Class Anthony Martinez, both young operators who had left behind wives and small children. Sarah found herself particularly moved by Mrs. Thompson, who had remarried since her first husband's death and now carried a baby who would never know the grandfather who died serving his country. The complexities of military family life after loss were something Sarah had learned about extensively, and she understood how difficult it could be for families to balance honoring the past with building new futures. As the final family completed their processing, Sarah noticed a familiar vehicle approaching the gate. Mrs. Patricia Donovan had arrived as promised, and Sarah felt the same sense of honor she had experienced during their first meeting months earlier. "Mrs. Donovan," Sarah said as the Gold Star mother emerged from her vehicle, "it's wonderful to see you again. The families are going to be so grateful for your presence here today." "Thank you, dear," Patricia replied with the warm smile that Sarah remembered so well. These ceremonies are never easy, but they're so important for helping families understand that their loved ones' sacrifices continue to have meaning. As Mrs. Donovan completed her entry processing, she paused to speak with Sarah about something that had clearly been on her mind. "You know, Sarah, may I call you Sarah? I've heard wonderful things about your work here over the past months. The families you've helped have told me about your kindness and professionalism." Sarah felt a warm glow of pride at the recognition from someone whose opinion had come to mean so much to her. "Thank you, Mrs. Donovan. Everything I've learned about serving military families, I learned from watching how you and others like you handle impossible situations with such grace." "Well," Patricia said with a knowing look, "I think you'd be surprised how much you've taught us as well. When families arrive here feeling overwhelmed and uncertain, having someone like you at the gate makes all the difference in how they experience their visit." The conversation was interrupted by the approach of Commander Harrison, who had come to personally escort Mrs. Donovan to the ceremony location. Sarah noted that the relationship between the commander and the Gold Star mother had clearly deepened over the months since she had first witnessed their interaction. "Patricia," Commander Harrison said with genuine warmth, "thank you for being here today. The family specifically asked that you be part of the ceremony." "I wouldn't miss it, James," she replied. "These boys served with Michael, and their families have become part of my extended family." As Commander Harrison and Mrs. Donovan departed for the ceremony, Sarah reflected on how much her understanding of military service had expanded over the past months. She had learned that the bonds forged in combat and service extended far beyond active duty, creating networks of support and shared purpose that lasted for generations. The ceremony itself was held in a memorial grove on the base, where stones had been placed to honor the 4 operators killed during Operation Neptune's Resolve. Sarah was not directly involved in the event, but she could see the gathering from her gate station and occasionally caught glimpses of the emotional proceedings. What struck her most was watching the children during the ceremony. The older ones stood with military bearing that reflected their understanding of the solemnity of the occasion, while the younger ones alternated between attention and distraction as children do. But all of them seemed to absorb something important from being surrounded by the military community that had known and served alongside their fathers. When the ceremony concluded and the families began returning to the gate for departure, Sarah observed something that would remain with her for the rest of her military career. As each family passed through her checkpoint, they were not just visitors leaving a base, they were members of an extended military family who had been reminded that their sacrifices were remembered and their connections to the service community would endure. Mrs. Chen stopped at Sarah's station as her family prepared to depart. "Thank you for everything today," she said. The children finally understand why their father was so proud to wear the uniform. Mrs. Rodriguez echoed similar sentiments as her extended family departed. "The girls have been struggling with their father's legacy," she explained. "Today helped them see that he died as part of something larger than any individual mission." As the last family departed and the base returned to its normal rhythm of operations, Sarah found herself changed once again by what she had witnessed. The ceremony had reinforced her understanding that military service was not just about individual courage or patriotic duty, it was about becoming part of a tradition of service that connected past, present, and future generations. Commander Harrison made one final stop at her gate station before departing. "Petty Officer Martinez," he said, "I wanted you to know that the families specifically mentioned your professionalism and compassion during their debriefing. You've helped make a difficult day meaningful for people who needed to feel connected to their loved ones' legacies." "Thank you, sir," Sarah replied. "It's an honor to serve families who have given so much." Keep doing what you're doing, he said with a smile. You've found your calling, and it's making a difference in ways you may never fully understand. As her shift ended and Sarah prepared to hand over duties to the evening team, she realized that her journey from routine gate duty to guardian of military family experiences had prepared her for whatever challenges lay ahead in her naval career. She had learned that true service meant more than following orders or completing missions. It meant becoming part of a brotherhood and sisterhood that honored sacrifice, supported families, and ensured that the values that drove military service would continue to inspire future generations. The California sun set over Naval Base Coronado, casting long shadows across the memorial grove where 4 warriors were remembered and honored by the families and community they had served. And, at the main gate, Sarah Martinez stood ready to welcome whatever families would arrive tomorrow, carrying with them their own stories of service, sacrifice, and enduring love for those who had answered their nation's call.